clicking on this video, you are allowing me to ruin your day as I tell you about one of the most evil, mustached Austrian men to ever exist. And no, not the one you're thinking of. Josef Fritzl was born on the 9th of April 1935 in Amstetten, Austria. He was a single child to Josef Sr. and to Maria. His relationship with his parents was mixed. His father left when he was 4 years old and never returning, leaving Maria to raise him on his own. Josef has described his mother as, I quote, "She was as strict as it was necessary. She was the best woman in the world, and I was her husband." I want you to keep that mentality in your head for the rest of this video. At the age of 21, Josef would go on to meet his future wife, Rosemary, and they would have 6 children together: Elizabeth, Ulrich, Harold, Doris, Joseph Jr. and Rosemary Jr. Although I'm not sure why Joseph Jr. just wasn't called Joseph III. Is Joseph, never mind. Now that I've got you all nice and warmed up, the Fritzls were, by all accounts, according to the community, a very loving family, but we're about to switch gears, so strap the fuck up. In 1967, Josef Fritzl broke into the house of a nurse and did that to her at knife point whilst her husband was out at work. Josef Fritzl was also the #1 suspect in another rape case of a 17-year-old girl, and he was also known for a lot of public indecent exposure. As a result of the first case I mentioned, Josef served 1 year of an 18-month sentence for the rape of the 24-year-old nurse. I can understand why women start to choose the bear. Oh, and for any women out there who do choose the bear, before you go into the woods to live in nature with your furry husband, may I suggest that you get a solar-powered radio, just so you can keep up to the events of, the rest of the world as we plummet towards the inevitable World War III. Speaking of World War III, Josef decided to build an underground bunker. Mind you, this was Austria during the Cold War, so, you know what, understandable. Nothing to see here, just a man keeping his hands busy. So apart from what Josef did to this 24-year-old nurse, everything actually seemed normal with this family, and he began building his underground bunker. Later on in that decade, in 1984, eldest child Elizabeth ran away from home with some of her friends from work. She was later found 3 weeks later and returned home. And then, on the 28th of March 1984, she ran away for good, joining a cult. Again, this was the 80s, so believable. Whilst doing the research for this, I saw some video clippings of the Fritzl family on holiday without Elizabeth, some photos as well. There's a photo of him riding a horse in Thailand, and for all intents and purposes, it seemed like the family had moved on and no one was really looking for Elizabeth. As I mentioned, this was the 80s and teenagers running away to join cults wasn't exactly a shock back in the time. So let's fast forward to the 19th of April 2008, where a 19-year-old Kirsten Fritzl is being rushed to hospital with severe organ failure. Who is Kirsten Fritzl, I hear you ask? Well, buckle up. Kirsten had a letter with her written by Elizabeth confirming that she was both Elizabeth's daughter and Joseph's granddaughter. Now, given the suspicion of the situation and the neglect of Kirsten, the hospital contacted the police straight away, who investigated both Kirsten, her condition, and the letter. And analytics later revealed that the letter was written a little bit too perfectly and almost like it had been dictated. The police broadcasted the message hoping that it would encourage Elizabeth to come forward with medical records for Kirsten so they could treat her better. And 1 week later, she showed up with Josef and 2 other children, Felix and Stefan. Given this was a case of child neglect, the police took them straight into questioning. And it turns out that young Kirsten, Stefan and Felix were indeed Joseph's grandchildren and Elizabeth's children. They were also Joseph's children and Elizabeth's siblings. I'm going to give you a second just to put that equation together. Yes, what this meant for young Kirsten, Stefan and Felix was that they were more inbred than egg mayonnaise. So, oh, that's such a shit joke, Daniel. That's staying in though. Professional mode. But how could this happen? They had not seen Elizabeth for nearly 24 years. It turns out that she was never in a cult. It also turns out she never left the house. Remember that bunker I told you about? Now, back in January of 1984, when Josef began work on the bunker, he did have the local authority and council come round to perform inspections and make sure that the place was up to scratch, with certain safety regulations, and that he actually had a permit to do his work. Once they had seen what they'd seen, they left and didn't think another thing about it. But Josef began expanding. Behind one steel door that weighed 499 kilos on its own, and behind another smaller door that was protected by a 5-digit security code, was 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a kitchen. And the night that Elizabeth ran away, Josef locked her in there. So, since the 28th of August 1984 up until the 19th of April 2007, Josef had kept his daughter locked away doing that. He didn't just father Kirsten, Stefan and Felix, he also fathered 4 more children, 3 of which would go to live upstairs with the family after leaving them outside in boxes, claiming that Elizabeth had dumped them on their front porch. These children would be Monica, Lisa and Alexander. The 7th child that I have not mentioned is Michael, who passed away after 3 days and is a twin of Alexander. Josef refused to get proper medical care and just said what will be, and unfortunately young Michael died, and then Josef cremated his body in the furnace. Lisa, Monica and Alexander were officially adopted by the Fritzl family and raised as their own, but downstairs in the basement remained Elizabeth, Kirsten, Felix and Stefan. Josef would visit the basement daily, and his excuse to his family was that he was downstairs working on certain projects and machinery that he would draw up the designs and blueprints for and then sell on to other companies. No one dared go near his basement or where he was working, but we'll talk more about that at the end of the video. Josef would force himself on Elizabeth regardless of the time of the month or regardless if the children were present. He would even make them watch pornography with him and then repeat the acts on the screen on Elizabeth in front of the children. I also need to say that during this 24-year period as well, there was a number of young women that went missing in the local area or near places that the Fritzls owned. The first one being a 17-year-old girl whose body was found in a lake next to a campsite that the Fritzls owned, and she struck a similar resemblance to Elizabeth. The second was a sex worker down by the Austrian-Hungarian border, just when Josef happened to be in the area too. There wasn't enough evidence in either case to bring charges to him, and even if there was, in Austria, your criminal record gets expunged after 15 years. So that previous conviction of, raping the 24-year-old nurse, that was deleted off of his records in 1982, which meant that he was no longer on their system, but could also legally adopt the other children. And just to make you hate this man even more, it would later be revealed that he had abused his son, Harold. I remember when this hit the news, it was all over Europe. I don't know how it was for everyone in America or Canada, but this was everywhere in Europe. And it was just one of the most weird, shocking things I've ever heard in my life. The trial did begin a year later, and people were calling it the trial of the decade. And at the beginning, Josef was deemed mentally fit to stand trial because obviously the defence tried to get him off on the lighter, more mental health charges. But after seeing Elizabeth in court, Josef broke down and pleaded guilty to everything. This includes, murder by negligence, enslavement, coercion, incest, just to name a few. I'm happy to say that Josef has been in prison since, or he's been more of a facility for the mentally disturbed because, So Josef has done many interviews with different media outlets, and he's had some very interesting things to say. So let's have a look at some of them, shall we? Ever since she, Elizabeth, entered puberty, she did not adhere to any rules anymore. She would spend the whole nights in dingy bars, drinking alcohol and smoking. I only tried to pull her out that misery. This is why I had to do something, by force if necessary, away from the outside world. My daughter had no chance of escape. Now, as someone who doesn't have children, it's considered a little bit of a social faux pas for me to comment on other people's parenting. However, I think there is something here I am allowed to say. Surely there's a better way to take care of angsty teenagers. And to finish this video off, I've got something to share with you that I didn't even know about this case until I was doing the research for it. And I've also got a few questions for Rosemary, the wife, because that's been a main question for a lot of people. How did you not know for 24 years? And to be fair, if there is a strong personality, coercion and narcissism are a very easy thing to make people follow your whim. We see it on social media with influencers and activists. We see it in communism. We see it in all these different ways of where you can control someone into not doing what you want them to do, or vice versa. It's sometimes even easier to hide horror in plain sight. But the thing that I did not know about this, as I mentioned earlier, Josef had a very estranged, different relationship with his mother, because what I told you earlier, Josef very much adored his mother, but it's later been revealed that she was quite controlling and abusive towards him and making him feel worthless. So when Josef and Rosemary moved into their home with their children, the mother moved in as well. Josef could exact his revenge. However, he would not kill her, he would not abuse her. He would lock her in her attic and board up the windows. Now, Rosemary, when he does this to his mother, and there's also a rape charge against him and he spent time in prison, surely that's got to be some kind of fucking warning sign. Elizabeth, of course, held some resentment towards her mother, and you can't blame her, but I am happy to say that Elizabeth and the 6 children, both the 3 basement and the 3 upstairs, all live together and all call her mother now. And Elizabeth has started talking to Rosemary again. So, some kind of happy ending. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Beyond Fiction on Josef Fritzl. If you did enjoy this video to some extent, please leave a like. If you're new here, please subscribe. If you want to support me in other ways, you can read my books, the Post-Apocalyptic series, The Taste Beneath, Diseased Intentions, and Insidious Valour. The cooking Patreon will start next year, and I'm going to be starting doing vlogs soon. Oh, and also stick around for the second channel, which I'll move all the gaming stuff over to. Thank you all for sticking around. This has been so good to get back in front of the camera and do this. Thank you all for sticking around. I love you all. Hope you're all having a great day. Much love. Take care. Peace.